Welcome to the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. We're going to explore ways to sharpen our diagnostic skills, find learning resources, and hear from experts in the automotive field.
Hey, have you ever been faced with the challenge of sourcing, installing, and programming a used control module in a vehicle? I know a lot of us have. It seems to be happening more and more often today with the volume of control modules on vehicles, the cost of some new ones, or even the availability of new control modules. In some cases, used may be the only option. So what do you do here? I strongly recommend checking out SJ Auto Solutions and Tommy Oliva. Tommy offers a cloning service for used control modules to make these things plug and play for the vehicle that you're working on. In a lot of cases, he is also able to source the control modules if you're unable to locate one for the vehicle that you're working on. But once you get connected with Tommy, he's going to offer fantastic support from start to finish to make sure that that control module is going to work in your application. He's also got tech support that he offers through his website, along with some free resources there as well on information about used control module programming. So make sure to check out SJ Auto Solutions. I can't recommend that enough. Hey, what's going on, automotive world? Welcome to another episode of the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. My name is Sean Tipping. I'll be your host once again for this week's episode. Thank you so much for joining me. Just me on the show this week. We have got a little bit of a case study. It's a little informational too in regards to the topic that we'll be talking about. But I do want to throw these technical episodes in here and there because, of course, it is the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. So we want to make sure to talk about that. This one has a little bit of keys and a little bit of programming, but there was a slight amount of diagnostics involved in this one as well. We're going to be talking specifically about Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Stellantis, smart keys, and particularly the tombstone style keys. So if you imagine the shape of the key, it's shaped like a tombstone, and I'm sure many of you have seen these style of smart keys. They're very common across multiple years of Stellantis vehicles, going all the way back to, the one I'm going to be talking about today is 2011, and that was right around the beginning of the style of key, but they were used up until 19 plus before they changed the style to a different one. Anyways, we'll be talking about those, and even more specifically, we're going to be talking about Dodge vehicles that are used for law enforcement as squad vehicles and how the keys and RF hubs pertain to them. Okay, so we're getting real specific here, but if you run into this in one form or another, it's going to save you a lot of time and effort and research to know about this up front. Now, if you're already familiar with this, hey, fill me in where I'm missing any details here in this episode. Every time I do a technical episode or a case study, I learn something, not only from working on the car and doing the research, but inevitably, we've got enough people listening to the show. There's somebody out there that knows more about this than me, or knows a single piece of information that's really key to solving a problem or getting to the solution easier, or even just like sourcing a part or a tool that does something that you didn't know about. There's inevitably somebody out there who has that piece of information that I don't or was not able to find. So chime in, let me know. There's a link in the show notes. You got my email there. You got the Facebook group. Feel free to fill in the blanks wherever I'm missing information. But I did do a little bit of research on this because it was a challenging vehicle to resolve. And to be totally honest, it probably wasn't resolved in the best way possible. But given the situation, we got the car on the road. And as far as the customer is concerned, that's all that mattered. So anyways, here's what we're dealing with. This is a shop, one of my favorite shops, actually. I wish I had 20 more like them. We do a lot of work with them, programming, diagnostics, some key work. They get it. right? They understand what we're up against, what they're up against, how to utilize our services to make them money, right? There's no ego involved, even though they are very intelligent and they are actually, it's in their name, they're focused on electrical diagnosis and repair for this particular shop. And it's nothing to take away from them that they're calling us, but they've realized that, hey, in certain situations where maybe we're a little out over our skis, particularly in programming is usually where we assist them, we'll just pay these guys and then mark up the price and make money on it, and we'll free up our technicians to do the stuff that they are best at. So they're making us money there. It's a win-win for everybody, right? The customer gets their car fixed probably sooner than they would otherwise. Maybe there's a little bit more cost on that end, but their car is fixed, and it's fixed or diagnosed, correctly and in an efficient amount of time. Plus, we're making money on other things. Anyways, I'm not trying to sell mobile here, but what I'm trying to get at is these guys get it, right? They understand it and they utilize us, and we have a great relationship. So anyways, just not real important to do with the car, but I just like to point that out, that I was willing to go above and beyond for this shop for that reason. And maybe that's why I'm pointing this out, because given a different situation and a different customer, I might have walked away from this pretty quickly, but I want to make sure that I do everything I can for this particular shop. So if you're wondering through this, like, why are you wasting your time on this? That's why. So, this was a 2011 Dodge Charger, and the important piece about this is that it's a former squad car. And I'm sure you're familiar, they use Dodge Chargers as squad vehicles for law enforcement. I imagine they still do. I don't know if there was a year that they stopped using them, but this one was, and it was decommissioned, meaning it was sold for civilian use at some point. And at some point, and I don't know the history of the vehicle, customer ended up, the end user, the driver of the vehicle ended up with this vehicle, and it didn't run. They bought it that way. I don't know the scenario of how it got to this point, but the customer, owner of the vehicle, got it not drivable, and it did not have an RF hub in it, or at least this is what they told us, because we did not have the original RF hub for the vehicle, which would have made this whole thing a lot easier if we did. But it's a key piece of information, is original RF hub missing, we don't have it. They did have a key for the vehicle, and they had attempted some repairs. Well, I shouldn't say they attempted it. They had this vehicle to a few other shops in attempts to get this thing running. And they had a key, and they were able to key the vehicle up using this key and using a used RF hub from another Charger of the same or similar year, right? So they could plug this RF hub in and they could key it up. And what I'm assuming is they got the key in the RF hub used from a junkyard or another Charger as a pair, and they installed it, and they could key it up, but they couldn't start it, which makes sense because that RF hub, that used one, is from another vehicle. It's got a different VIN. It recognizes the key through the antennas of the vehicle, but it's not going to do anything else. They also had a brand new RF hub that they had purchased. The source of this one, unsure. They weren't sure, or the message wasn't translated properly to us, or they weren't confident in the answer that the customer gave them. So they're just like, it's new, but we don't know where it was purchased from. And we actually did hook up to this one, and it was all Ys for the VIN, which if you read that is like an uninitialized module, right? It does not have a VIN number in there, and you'd proceed with the process of initializing an RF hub, which I'll talk about, and then you set it up to the vehicle. Shop had attempted this, was not able to do it. Okay, and this is about the time they got us called in, because when it gets to something where it requires vehicle security or advanced programming, used modules, things like that, that's where we're getting called in to take a look at this one. And I think the original call they gave us was like, hey, can you program a key to this vehicle? Because that's essentially what we're trying to do. Like, we have a key that works with a used RF hub. When that one's plugged in, but it doesn't start it, ideally we'd like to use the RF hub that the new RF hub that's in there, get a key programmed to it, get this thing going. All right, cool. Yeah, we can figure that out. So we come and we attempt to do that. We did bring a key for an 11 charger and attempt to program it, and it did not take. Basically, fail. And I wasn't involved with the initial time that we arrived there, but technician tells me, hey, I can't program a key. It's not accepting it with this new hub. So we get talking to the shop, and we're like, well, where did they get this RF hub from? We don't know. Okay, I was like, well, if you want us to pursue this, I think the best way is just for you guys to talk to the customer and say, if they can't provide proof that they got this new from the dealer, let's order one per the VIN, so we know that it's the right hub. We know that it's actually a brand new module that's never been initialized in anything else. Yeah, the VIN wasn't in there, but still, I don't know where this thing came from. I don't know the history on it. Let's get one for the vehicle. And they agree. They're like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, because we don't know what this thing has been through or what's involved. So let's use the VIN number and order it. And here's another thing that I do want to pause here. And we do this for every single vehicle now that we do any sort of key or immobilizer work for. And I think it would really be smart for everybody to do this, right? If you're doing immobilizer work, if you're doing key work for a vehicle, take the 30 seconds that it takes to grab the VIN number of the vehicle, and you're going to go to a website, and I will put this website in the show notes, and you can just Google stolen VIN check if you don't even want to click on this link, but the link's in there, and it's the National Insurance Crime Bureau VIN check lookup. And you can look up a VIN and you can see if that vehicle has been registered as stolen. You can also see if it's a total loss. But our big thing is we want to make sure that the vehicle we are working on, making a key for, doing immobilizer work, is not registered as stolen. Now, here's the other thing you want to consider, especially with these Dodge Ram vehicles. Chop shops will rebuild these things and they'll utilize VIN numbers on the vehicle that aren't the actual VIN number, so that it doesn't show up as stolen. Make sure you scan the whole vehicle and take a look at VIN numbers. And if you see a bunch of different VIN numbers and things like that, that's a red flag. You want to be careful about that. Again, I would run, if you have multiple VINs, run multiple VINs through there to make sure that nothing pops up as stolen. In this case, nothing did. And we were actually able to get proof of ownership from the owner or the customer, which we require in order to get the PIN code for this one. For that, you want to get proof of ownership. And we did want it in this case just because it just seemed like an odd situation. We want to make sure they were on the up and up. And they were. They own this vehicle, proof of ownership, the VIN's checked out good. But make sure that you're doing that. Make sure that you're taking the time to check that, because it really doesn't take that much. It's free on that website. Again, check it out in the show notes or just Google stolen VIN check and run it through there. It's well worth your time. Anyways, we make sure this is on the up and up, and they agree to get a new RF hub. They do that, and we come back to the vehicle with that, and we get the same situation as we did with the new RF hub that the customer supplied. We're not able to program a key to it. Now, this is an important point to bring up. The process of initializing a brand new RF hub on one of these vehicles, and most of them that use RF hubs. This is all the way up into 2020s as far as I've seen. But step one of an RF hub is programming a key. And you actually don't even need the PIN code for this step. You'll need the PIN code to initialize the RF hub after you've programmed the key, but step one is add a key. Then once you've done that, you can proceed with the process. And we cannot even get past that step. We cannot program a key to this vehicle. It will not accept it. So this is about the time I got involved with it, to just see what's going on. Do we have other things going on with the vehicle? I checked the pre-scan, and there's a bunch of codes in this thing, but I don't see anything that would necessarily be preventing this. But I have dealt with some issues getting keys programmed to these smart key style, tombstone style smart keys in these Dodge vehicles. And this thing was in pretty rough shape. It was torn apart in places. You could tell somebody's been working on it, trying to get this thing going. So this is where I kind of got schooled on some of this information once I dug into the car a little bit. And to be honest, when I was dealing with this remotely assisting my technicians, I didn't even realize at first that it was a former squad car. Now they did, just it wasn't communicated, and I didn't do my due diligence up till this point to see based on the VIN that, oh, okay, this is a X squad. But once I did, the first question I had, come up to mind was, do we have the correct RF hub, number one? And they did confirm they ordered it from the dealer off the VIN, and then we matched the part number to Parts Link, and it did come up with the correct RF hub for this vehicle, but also the key that we were using. So the keys that we had been attempting were the keys that we have in stock that match a 2011 Dodge Charger, and we also tried the key that came with the car. Now, this is an important point to bring up that kind of stuck with us as we're going through this, is we could key the ignition up using the RF hub and that original key. That wasn't until we erased it, but we did key the vehicle up, which tells us a lot of things about the system. That there is an antenna, at least one of them in the car, that can register that key, and the RF hub says, "Yep, I see the key is present, and I'm going to key up the vehicle." That's an important piece of information because it does use the low frequency antennas within the vehicle in order to see, okay, hey, the key is there. We're going to turn this on as a prox function, right? You could hold the key up to the ignition switch for the short range one when the battery's dead, but you didn't even have to do that. But those low frequency antennas, particularly the one under the center console of both Chargers and Rams and other Chrysler vehicles like this, the low frequency antenna, the proximity antenna, if you will, is important for programming a key. Okay, so when you add a key to one of these smart key vehicles, and depending on the programming device you use, Autel and other aftermarkets are not as specific, but if you use YTech, it'll tell you specifically to put the key near the center console when you're doing the programming, and you initiate the programming and you hit the button on the key, and it triggers by hitting the unlock button and sending a high frequency signal at 433 megahertz that the RF hub picks up and says, oh, okay, I got a key. But what it does then is it triggers the low frequency antenna, which is for your proximity that at 125 kilohertz, to reach out to the key there, which triggers the key again. So where I'm going with this is if the low frequency antennas don't work for some reason, specifically the one under the center console, if that doesn't work, this process can't be completed. You can't register a key. And a misconception is that you can use the short range where you push the head of the key up to the button, and that's not true. Doesn't work that way. It uses the low frequency antenna. So you want to make sure those work, whatever method that takes, right? And we have some tooling to do that, and there's some ways you can do that. Even with like a tool like the KeyTool Max, you can actually infer that it's activating, but there's the diagnostic box as a proximity tester, and you can verify that those antennas are actually doing what they're supposed to do when they're supposed to do it, which is important. But we know that works because with the used key, we can key it up. So that should work. Of course, we want to verify, especially when we're having problems. Here's the other thing. And before I went back to it, this was the other part of it that I said, okay, we got to verify. Do we have the correct key, right? We verified they ordered the correct RF hub, but do we have the correct key for this vehicle? We're using an aftermarket that we have, and we have had some trouble with these, I'll admit. The aftermarket Tombstone styles often have difficulty programming into these vehicles. It's like once you get them programmed, they're fine, but that process where it uses the short range antenna to find the key within the vehicle during the programming, for whatever reason, the aftermarkets just have a heck of a time getting programmed in. I've actually had better luck, and so have other people that I've talked to, using universal Autel keys here in this situation. They make the look-alike ones. They have, as far as the outside of the key is concerned, it looks identical as the exact Tombstone style. but the internals are made by Autel, and you use the Autel like KM100 or IM608 in order to create that universal key and then program that in, and it just works. I've had better luck with those than other aftermarket keys. Of course, you can get a dealer key too. Now, in this situation, that's what we ended up doing, because once we looked into this and we realized it was a squad car, and we realized, oh, something is different about these squad cars, and there is a different key. And this is actually like one of the main points of this podcast, is to inform you of this. If you're dealing with a X squad car decommissioned, and I don't know, maybe you're programming a current squad car for one reason or another. That could be too, if you're a shop that you service, or your shop does fleet work for your local law enforcement. It's very possible that you could be doing a RF hub. They use a different set of keys and different RF hubs for the law enforcement vehicles. And they're going to use what's called a key alike function within the fleet side of things. And for this particular 2011 Dodge Charger, there are 4 different options. When you look up, like if you look up the part numbers, or if you look up the sales codes, or you look up the flash files even for the RF hub, because I got kind of deep into this, there are different flash numbers for the different RF hubs. Now they're not interchangeable. You can't program one to the other. We actually tried this and it didn't work out well. But where I'm going with this is there are 4 different options for the fleet frequencies for these vehicles, and you need to get the correct one for the vehicle. But here's the other thing. When you are ordering keys, you need to make sure that you're getting the correct key to match to the RF hub that you have. So we did this. We did our due diligence. We used the VIN number. We used the part number of the RF hub that had been installed in the vehicle, which is ordered per the VIN. And we ordered the key that matched it. And it was a different part number for this key than what was equipped with a civilian Dodge Charger of the same year. Okay. So, and we're thinking, well, this is probably it. This is probably going to fix it. So we get this key. It takes a little bit of time. I go back to it this time, messing with it, and we can't get this key programmed in either. And we tried quite a few things at this point. I did some scoping. Like I pulled the antenna out from the underneath the center console, and I pulled it up. So not only could I scope right at it, but also so I could just put the key that needs to communicate with this antenna like right on top of the antenna to make sure like, okay, there's no range problem here. We even moved one of the other antennas from inside of the vehicle to that spot. Didn't work. We couldn't program this key. This show is brought to you by Automotive Seminars. If you're looking to stay up on the cutting edge diagnostic strategies and techniques, this is the place. You've got live 4-hour seminars that are put online that you can join in, ask questions, interact with the instructors with some of the best of the best. They've got Keith Perkins and John Thornton putting on classes like network diagnostics, mechanical engine testing, advanced electrical testing, and GDI diagnostics, and a ton more. And once you purchase one of these training seminars, you can access this at any time that you want through your account at automotiveseminars.com. You can rewatch the training a year, 2 years later, which makes this training even more valuable. So I highly recommend you check this out. The link is in the show notes. I tried a little bit of swapping around here to see what was going on. We tried the used RF hub. And what was interesting about this one is we couldn't get its original key programmed back in. Admittedly, I didn't try too hard with that one. Now, what we did find at this point, as I'm screwing around with this, is this used RF hub that at one point we did see a key that worked with it, was out of a civilian Charger of the same year. And it was actually a different part number, and it matched up with the part number for the civilian option for this for a Dodge Charger. And after doing some messing around, we found that we could get an Autel universal key programmed to this used RF hub. Now, again, when you key it up, it has the wrong VIN number in it. So the anti-theft system is going to prevent you from starting the vehicle at this point. You got VIN mismatch and all that stuff. But what this reiterated to me was that there's nothing wrong with the antennas in the vehicle. It can see the key, right? It goes through the programming process. Why it takes an Autel Universal to do these, I'm unsure. Maybe somebody out there has a little bit more info on that than I do, but they work, and it did in this case. I can't get this Autel Universal programmed into the new one, but I also can't get the dealer key programmed into the new one. And again, different frequencies, so looking back on it, it makes sense why it wouldn't accept the Autel in one case but not the other. But the goal is to get one of these new hubs working. We tried both of them. Didn't work. Why is this? What's happening? And I thought, potentially we got the wrong key from the dealer. And actually, in hindsight, I'm pretty confident that we got the wrong key from the dealer, but I have no way of verifying that in real time. And also, I don't even really know what the difference is between them. Like, is it just frequency? It's not the FCC ID. And I found that out. And you can actually see that the FCC ID is stamped the same on both RF hubs. And according to the information that I found online, the keys for the squad chargers, the fleet frequencies, and the keys for the civilian ones have the same FCC ID. And here's another interesting piece of information I learned along the way. You can decommission a squad vehicle through the scan tool, through the RF hub. You can go in and turn it into a civilian mode, so it will accept civilian keys. But you know what you need in order to do that? You need the module initialized before you can run that function. And you know what you need to do to initialize a module? You got to have a key program to it. So you can see the issue of where I was. Where I'm going with that is the FCC ID has got to be the same, and everything I found shows that it is, because really you're just switching something inside the hub to say, hey, accept these civilian keys. My guess is it's something to do with the frequency, or at the very least the information that key is broadcasting. The whole idea of the key alike function is so that a officer in law enforcement can have one key and it will start all of the vehicles within that fleet. Now, I don't know the specific details of how it's programmed or set up. The information that I could find shows that, like, when they order a fleet of vehicles, they come pre-programmed with the keys. Well, like I said, what if you have to replace an RF hub, or if you replace a key? How does that affect that? I don't know. I haven't done enough law enforcement immobilizer work to be able to answer those questions. Again, maybe somebody else out there has that information. I'd be curious. It's obviously sensitive stuff in a way too, right? Because these cars are older and things have obviously changed, but still, they don't want their cars vulnerable or any more vulnerable to being stolen than they already are. So maybe that stuff's kept under wraps for a reason. But back to the car. I'm stuck here and I'm not really sure where to go. So I decided what I was going to try to do was a little bit of board level work in this case to try and get something going, because I tried everything I could in the car, and we've already ordered, this new key. We've told them to order a new RF hub. We have 2 new ones that actually appear to be exactly the same. Looks like they had the correct one in the first place. And we just can't get a key programmed to this thing. So I'm going to go board level and see, is there a possibility that either A, I can make the used module work. That's the less preferred option, because we'd like to have the new one work that we ordered. Or can I make that new one work? Can I get a key programmed into this RF hub board level? And we did quite a bit of messing around, and I was able to add a key to the new RF hub to the point where you plugged in the scan tool. It showed that a key was registered. Even showed the correct key ID for the one that I programmed in there, but it still would not initiate it would not do the initialization process. Once I got to that point, it would let me attempt the initialization, right? Again, program key and then do initialization, it would have let me attempt it, but it said no key present, even though it had a key programmed to it. And I had that key with me. I think I had the wrong key. I think the dealer sent me the wrong key is where I'm going with this, but it didn't work. I couldn't get that to happen. And we were kind of at a loss here of how we were going to make this thing go. And again, this is a shop that I want to get a win for them because they want to get it fixed and we want to get it fixed for them. So I told them, I was like, well, we can try to order another key. It took like a week to get this one. And they talked with their customer to update them, and they were getting a little bit antsy because they'd had the car for almost a month at this point. And so the guy was, he was understanding, but he's like, I just need this thing to run one way or another. It doesn't have to be perfect. So they asked us, okay, well, maybe we'll get another key, but what if that doesn't work? What are other options? What else can we do? And we gave them the only other option I could think of was, well, since we can get this thing to key up with the used RF hub, maybe we can make that one work. Right, this is the civilian hub, or maybe we can make one like that work. Maybe we could order a civilian style hub and see if we can get that to work. They're like, well, let's just see if we can get this going with the used RF hub. Let's see if we can get it started, and then maybe we'll have a path. We talk to our customer and see which way he wants to go at that point. So we played around, and I actually was able to get the used RF hub with our Autel universal key to fire this thing up. And it took a little bit of trickery to get the rest of the car to accept the used RF hub. Again, probably not the ideal way to do it, but it worked and it actually fired up, which after battling with this thing for a little bit was cool to see. But we talked to them, let them know what we did. It's not the ideal situation, but it works. It starts. Let us know what you want us to do if we want to pursue trying to get the correct key or seeing, if there's anything else wrong with the vehicle. I don't believe there is at this point because it works this way. And they spoke with their customer, and their customer is fine with it the way it was. Again, not ideal, but it ran, and that's what the customer wants. That's actually where we ended up leaving the car. Now, why am I talking about this on the podcast? So maybe you can avoid a situation like the one I was in here. Now, the tricky part is we attempted to get all the correct parts for this. And that's the key right there, is identifying that you have an X squad car. Now, you'll also want to identify if it's been decommissioned or not. And you can do that through the scan tool. There's a area within the RF hub that says, some civilian mode or not. And you can, if you have a key that's programmed to it and it's initialized, you can turn that off. You can't turn it back on. As far as my reading goes, it's a one-time thing. Once you turn it off, it's off. But you can reference the sales code of the vehicle to tell not only is it a squad car, but which one of the 4 frequencies does it use, because that's going to determine what RF hub you're supposed to use and what key you're supposed to use. And where you source that key from is also going to be important. I would recommend the dealer, but looking back on this, it's the only thing that makes sense to me is that I got the wrong key from the dealer. Now, I tore it apart. I looked at the board. I Googled all the markings on the board to see, hey, is this the correct key? Because the part number of the key that I ordered it, and it didn't come in a bag, unfortunately, with a number on it. It just had a receipt and the key, but there wasn't any physical marking on the key that said, hey, this is this number that you're looking for. I went a step further and looked at the frequency, not only with the Key Tool Max, but I have an SDR frequency detector, which I talked about back in, episode 40 or something like that. It's what's your frequency? You can look that up, where I used that for some RF troubles I had with a Yukon. And you can visually see the output of the keys on this thing. It's pretty cool. I haven't found too much use for it diagnostic-wise, but if you want to visually see the output of a key, it's kind of cool to see how it works. And they're pretty much identical to the aftermarket keys for a civilian style, which is why I think they gave me just a regular civilian style key. Again, I don't know the intricacies of what exactly is different, but something is. And I think I had the wrong one. So reason I'm doing this is hopefully if you get one of these cars, you can be a little bit more prepared. You know what's coming at you when you're working on one of these. And there is information out there if you take the time to search and utilize it. So anyways, a little bit of a technical case study, informative one there for you. We'll be back at the interview next week with Tommy. But in the meantime, I'd like to thank everybody for listening to the show, all the feedback that we get for the show. Oh, hey, also we have old school podcast swag that we're looking to clear out. We'll be having a sale on that pretty soon. So check Facebook and we'll have something up there soon. But with that all out of the way, let's get out there, start fixing the world one car at a time.